My coworker Mark started buying me expensive coffee every morning and insisting I drink it in the break room, and when I said I could buy my own coffee, he got weirdly defensive and said I had to accept his gifts. This whole thing began 3 weeks ago. Mark would show up at exactly 8:55 a.m. with a steaming cup from the fancy coffee shop across the street. "Sarah, your usual," he'd announce, placing the cup on my desk with this forced smile. The coffee was always perfect. Oat milk latte with an extra shot, exactly how I liked it. But something felt off about his sudden generosity. "I really don't need you to buy my coffee," I told him after the first week. Mark's face changed completely. His jaw tightened and he stepped closer to my desk. "You have to drink it in the break room," he insisted. "It's better there. More relaxing." I found this request bizarre. Why couldn't I drink coffee at my own desk like everyone else? But Mark wouldn't take no for an answer. He'd hover nearby until I walked to the break room, then watch me through the glass partition until I finished every drop. The routine became sacred to him. Mark would get agitated if I arrived early or tried to skip the coffee ritual. Once, I came in at 8:30 and found him pacing by the elevators, checking his watch repeatedly. "You're early," he said, sounding almost panicked. "The coffee isn't ready yet. Can you wait outside for a few minutes?" I thought he was losing his mind. Who asks someone to wait outside their own office building? But I was curious enough to comply. When I returned at exactly 9 a.m., Mark appeared with the coffee as if nothing had happened. My colleagues started noticing Mark's strange behavior too. Jessica from accounting mentioned that he seemed nervous and distracted during meetings. "He keeps checking the time and asking when meetings will end," she said. "It's like he's got somewhere urgent to be." I decided to test my theory. One Tuesday, I arrived at 8:30 a.m. and took the stairs instead of the elevator. When I reached our floor, I saw Mark slumped over his desk, completely motionless. I thought he might be sick, so I approached quietly. The smell hit me before I got close, strong alcohol mixed with mouthwash. Mark was passed out cold, and empty mini bottles of whiskey were scattered around his workspace. I stood there shocked, trying to process what I was seeing. Mark stirred and lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot and unfocused. When he saw me, panic flashed across his face. "Sarah. You're early," he mumbled, quickly sweeping the bottles into his desk drawer. I was just resting my eyes. The alcohol smell was overwhelming. Everything suddenly made sense, the precise timing, the insistence on the break room, the defensive behavior about the coffee. Mark wasn't being generous. He was buying time. "Mark, are you drinking before work?" I asked directly. He broke down completely. Tears started flowing as he confessed that he'd been drinking every morning for the past month. His divorce proceedings were destroying him financially and emotionally. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and the only way he could face coming to work was with liquid courage. "I know it's wrong," he sobbed. "But I can't lose this job too. If they fire me, I'll have nothing left." The coffee ritual was his desperate attempt to control when I arrived at the office. By ensuring I came at exactly 9 a.m., he had time to sober up, use mouthwash, and pretend everything was normal. The break room requirement was so I wouldn't smell alcohol on his breath when we talked. Mark had been spending his lunch money on expensive coffee for me while drinking his breakfast from mini bottles. He was terrified I'd discover his secret and report him to HR. The generous coworker act was actually an elaborate cover-up for his spiraling alcoholism. "I'll get help," he promised. "Just please don't tell anyone yet. Give me 1 week to figure this out." I realized Mark wasn't my enemy, he was a desperate person trying not to drown. The coffee wasn't a gift, it was a lifeline he'd thrown to himself, hoping it would keep his secret safe long enough to find real help. Mark had turned me into an unwitting accomplice in his morning routine, timing his recovery around my caffeine schedule.